I like your guitar collection back there. That looks rad.
Yep. We've got really one good work from home space here, and normally my wife uses it, but
So does that mean that everyone thinks she plays those guitars?
yeah, so yeah, her work clientele is a little bit different than ours. So yeah, she's definitely got some comments about that being on the wall behind her.
So I am Will Montague. I'm the president at Guerrilla Gravity. Broadly, I describe my role as all the businessy stuff, and kind of making sure that all the pieces come together.
And I'm Matt Giaraffa, chief engineer, in charge of design and manufacturing.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, Matt and Will, for taking the time to Zoom with us today in these strange and weird times. Speaking of that, how are you guys holding up? How's the business holding up with all the COVID-19 related stuff and with what's going on with all the restrictions?
I'd say we're muscling through. So we have a kind of a minimum basic operation going on the fulfillment side. Anyone who can work from home is working from home. We're running 2 shifts to minimize the number of people that are there at any one time to 5 or fewer of the fulfillment staff.
And that's spread out over 7 days a week also.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to keep up with like your kind of current demand or sales kind of still happening?
Yeah, we're
Are
definitely
you
able to still rate the orders are coming
fulfill?
in. And actually get a little bit ahead. Orders have definitely not dried up by any means.
I am glad, by the way, that you guys are able to, move forward and keep business running. But yeah, we're actually really here today because some exciting news. You guys have a new bike that you're launching today.
Yep. The Nirvana.
The Gnarvana. That's quite the name. What does it mean? Is it in reference to the band or more like of an enlightenment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you look across the product line, you see that there's musical references sprinkled throughout. And yeah, this is designed to be the bike that you can really lose yourself on because the trail that you're riding requires 100% of your focus.
Right on. So Nirvana, can you talk us through what the bike is? I have one.
160 millimeter travel 29er.
Go through what the bike is.
170 travel fork up front. Yeah, so it's the long travel bike with big wheels.
Well, what made you guys want to make this model?
So it's been a progression. So we started out with our first ride everything bike was the Mega Trail in 2014, and that bike was long travel and was pushing the limits at the time, and at the time was also using the new larger wheel size of 27.5. And so just fast forward a few years, and now we're to the point of now 29ers have become the main focus, and now it's been, people want a long travel ride everything bike with 29ers, and that's where the natural evolution has taken us. So that's what we're filling in the product offering with that.
Nice. Can we kind of dig in a little bit and talk about some of the numbers going on with the Nirvana?
Yeah, so geometry wise, the Nirvana is a 63.7 degree head tube angle, 470 millimeter reach in the size 3 long, which fits people. It's about 5'9" to 6'2" or so.
Okay.
It's definitely a long bike. The wheelbase is the longest we've made thus far. So that same setup is 1273 millimeters.
Yeah. Is it going to come with coil shock only, or are you guys going to offer different options there?
No, it's air and coil. So all of our bikes we design to work well with both what we call modern air springs, which are most of them now, which are like the Fox Evol and RockShox, Debonair, and similar things like that, which also works well with the coil shock. So the leverage curve it's progressive, but not overly progressive. So it works well with a modern air spring or coil shock. So the defaults are in the build kits are air shocks on the Gnarvana, but coil shocks are in there and they work great. I like the coil shock personally quite a bit.
Okay. So what are we looking at for like in regard to the seat angle?
Seat tube angle. So we've been one of the first with steep seat tube angles, and remember a few years ago we were beating that drum of explaining the difference between effective and actual, but it's about a 76-degree seat tube angle. So still steep seat tube angles, long reach, long wheelbase.
Yeah. How many sizes do you guys make available?
We have 3 in production right now, 2, 3, and 4. So it covers people of just over 5 feet to around 6, 8 or so.
So yeah, so how, when you go from the size 3 to the size 4, how much longer is the reach getting at that point?
That's getting 30 millimeters long to long. And if you go size 3 long to size 4 short, it's a 20 millimeter jump.
Right.
So depending
So
on
that
the,
brings us to a different point, is that you guys with your modular frame design, everything, part of that whole thing is the ability you have like basically a square head tube where you can where the cups fit in, and you can actually adjust the wheelbase via the headset, correct?
yep. Yeah, that's the Geo Adjust headset. It works great. It's part of the whole modular frame platform ecosystem because it helps as we're going from model to model, and as angles change a little bit and reach and effective top tube change, and even jumps between sizes. It's a great way to change preference and get in between sizes and things like that. The top cup is the same on everything, and there's 2 different heights of lower cups, which is the adjustment from wheel size to wheel size. So we can adjust front ride height that way. And then riders can also, if they prefer, they can use the different heights just for tuning. If they want, say, the shorter cup on a 27.5 front end, they can do that, or the other way around.
Yeah.
And so back to the sizing question, one thing we realized a few years ago by looking into how sizing worked was that instead of keeping the same sizing increment from size to size to size, that the way that rider height tended to scale was more of a percentage based. So the gap between people's sizes increases as you get taller, is what we had noticed from riders. And so we had taken that into account. If you look at the geo chart, the gap between a size 2 and a 3 is smaller than it is from a 3 to a 4.
That's interesting. So before we go, I do want to get into the modular frame design, but before getting kind of all the way into that stuff and reminding anybody who, isn't aware, I did want to get into a little bit about like the suspension design that you guys use on your bikes. Is it a horse link setup?
Yeah, so it's what we call the Freedom linkage. It's an implementation of a horse link, which of course we generally caution people not to get hung up too much on what the platform is, because you can make one platform ride in a number of different ways. So even if you've ridden one horse link and think, oh, they ride like this, well, they don't all ride in a certain way. So
yeah,
we chose it as it gave us the freedom to do the kinematics that we wanted. We have plenty of kinematic tuning options there. Even by just changing out the seat stay tuning kits, there's plenty of options. We can change chain stay length, we can change leverage curves, we can change BB heights and head tube angles and amount of progression and all sorts of things just by changing that. So it's something that just worked pretty well from, you can keep everything the same except for the seat stay tuning kit.
Yeah, and also the part of the idea behind the name of the Freedom linkage is that you have the leverage curve is such that you have a wide range of tuning options available to you. So it's not on one end of the spectrum. So, you can run more volume spacers, you can run fewer volume spacers, you can run more sag, less sag, you can run air, coil. So you really you have the freedom to kind of dial in the tune of the rear suspension to suit your local terrain and riding style.
I actually didn't notice that there wasn't a crush and plush mode on this. So you guys do like on some of your bikes you have like crush mode and plush mode. Can you talk about what that is and why you haven't done it for the Gnarvana?
Yeah, so and in fact, crush and plush mode is a great example of the kinematic freedom that you do have just within one platform, because on the trail pistol and the smash that have that, it is just a simple eccentric, and by flipping it, it makes a noticeable ride change. And the reason we put that in there is both those bikes is the ground that they're trying to cover is, some riders want it to feel certainly quite a bit more supportive than others, and some want it to feel like, for example, the trail pistol in crush mode is a really supportive short travel trail bike. And then whereas in plush mode, it's a more of like a more forgiving short travel trail bike, and just the way it sits and how it's used, it's a convenience to be able to adjust that. And it was the same thing on the smash, because at 145 travel rear and we spec a 150 fork on there, even changing the fork to a 160 and putting it in plush mode makes it, feel quite a bit different than a 150 fork and in crush mode. So those have that because there's a more of a range of what people are trying to get out of them. On the Gnarvana, it was more clear focused of we just want to flatten all the terrain in front of us, and really there's just really more one goal of how that was wanted to ride, and so we didn't feel the need that there need to be a second setting. It was, we were pretty clear on this is what people are going to want this to ride like, and so that's what we'll make it ride like, and there's no reason to put a second adjustment.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty like it is what it is. Like it's pretty clearly
Yeah.
defining what it's
Yep.
trying to do here. Like it's got pretty long-ish, chain stays. You've done like a 450 mil chain stay on it to make it like a pretty plowy, just mob through shit kind of.
Yeah,
And not to mention the fact that you guys, like, this is your 5th model within this modular frame design world that you've created. And so it's, if you wanted something else, you could pick a different bike, whether or not it has those 2 modes, and you could go from there, right?
exactly.
So this is your, 5th bike under this umbrella. And do you think there's a point where you sort of run out of what you can do with the one front end, as far as like, making heavier duty or lighter weight layups, or, can you accomplish everything you want geometry wise with the front, with the single front end? I mean, you have built in, tons of adjustment kind of all over your entire platform that you've created. But do you find that are you going to run out? Are you going to offer a second front end to sort of serve different needs?
So I would say that certainly it's constant evolution, but where we're at now, would there be compromises in doing one modular frame platform? I would say if we tried to make an XC race bike, we'd have to make some compromises, or if we tried to make a dedicated downhill race bike, we'd have to make some compromises. But in the breadth that we're going for, which is, the full range of ride uphill to ride downhill of whatever you can find, and get to the top as efficiently as you can and get to the bottom as fast as you can. Where we're at now, I mean, the difference between someone trying to climb up a steep, difficult climb on a trail pistol versus a Gnarvana is you're still trying to get to the top as efficiently as you can. So it's not a huge difference in what you need to do that. And then on the way down, the bike's still going to need to take the abuse of ripping down as quickly as you can. So,
right. So how much, for instance, do things like the, leverage rate and things change between like the trail pistol and the Gnarvana? Like you guys sent me this bike, you sent a whole other kit so that we can test it in as we can turn it into a trail pistol and turn it back into Gnarvana and kind of test back and forth. So what actually changes there as far as like the leverage rates and stuff? I mean, obviously it's different travel, but
yep. Yeah. So basically between the shock that mounts in there, so the trail pistol of course uses a 210 by 50, and the Gnarvana uses a 230 by 65. So there's a 15 millimeter difference in shock stroke.
Yeah.
And combined with, we can change the rocker length by rocking it back and forth where it sits at top out and how it moves throughout the travel, and where the rear shock mount point is. By changing those two things together, you can change the shape and the amount of progression by quite a bit. And so we basically tuned it a bit different. So the trail pistol's, a little more just trail focused, where the Gnarvana is more, it's tuned to smooth things out by quite a bit, but still have plenty of ramp up at bottom out. So I would say that in general, when you overlay all the curves, they all definitely have a pretty similar shape to them. It's more tuning how much progression and what the nuances of the shaping are.
Yeah, and they're all designed to kind of have similar ride characteristics and the same DNA, and it's not like one ride's way different than the other. They're all going to ride like a Guerrilla gravity bike. So it's just, in a lot of ways, you're basically just optimizing your setup for your local terrain.
Do you think that people are, or I guess maybe, do you see your customers moving back and forth quite a bit, or are you seeing more somebody choosing something and sticking with it?
There's a range there. There's a lot of mountain bikers are set it and forget it. But even for the set it and forget it crowd, it still gives the freedom of, if you move, or maybe next year, like, hey, this new 38 came out and I want to try a LongTravel setup, or I moved or now I'm riding these trails and I want to try this instead, or I had LongTravel and I want to try short travel, or I'm going to try racing, or, whatever. Even if your needs change year to year, people can swap things, which that's probably the most common thing we've seen as far as people changing seat stay kits is, like, oh, I rode this one for a while and I kind of want to try a different setup. And then instead of needing to buy a whole nother bike, it's a much smaller investment. And then you still have the original ones. And then, for example, like what I did last year was I had my bike set up as a trail pistol all year for riding our local trails, and then went to the Pacific Northwest for the GG camping weekend up there, where we rode a bunch of stuff in Bellingham, and then went to Whistler and rode the bike park for a few days. And for that, we didn't have the Gnarvana at the time, but I switched mine to Mega Trail seat stays and did a Mega Smash, which was a mullet, a 170 travel 29er up front with the Mega Trail rear, which is 27.5, 165 travel.
Yeah.
So that's another common way that we've seen people do.
Yeah, they're planning a trip and they're like, okay, I want to transform my bike so that I can, utilize the terrain that I'm, going to visit.
Yeah, exactly.
Without, having to get obviously a whole new bike. That's really cool. I mean, and like, it's funny because we do see that. I think as mountain bikers, a lot of us, we're kind of never satisfied. We're like, one year we're like, oh, well, I'm really excited about fast twitchy bikes. And then the next year we're like, no, I want a big sled.
Yep.
And it sort of follows, it either follows or doesn't follow kind of what's happening in the industry, where, it's like one year every manufacturer is doing a long travel 2.9, and another year everybody's doing a short travel 2.9, and another year everybody's doing their like playful little 27.5 bike. It's like, seems to go in trends, and we follow along with that sometimes. And I'm guessing, it saves a lot of materials and a little bit better for the planet maybe too, which is cool. So
yeah, kind of the idea and the concept we're going is that riders are buying into a platform or an ecosystem for a product line, and so they can future proof and they have options, and if they move or their preferences change, or it turns out they want a little more travel, they don't have to move on from their current bike if they like everything else about it. They just wish it had a little more travel.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a new way to go about it.
Yeah.
I mean, even on that same idea of, now that we're launching another additional model, anybody that say got the Smash last year, and even if they're like, I kind of, wish it had a little more travel, and well, now that model exists and they don't have to sit there and be like, what do I do now? It's like, well, you can switch the seat stays and up the travel. So it is a bit of future proofing in that regard as well. Just kind of peace of mind for buying into a whole platform instead of just one model.
Yeah, and it also uses the same shock as the Mega Trail. So if someone has a Mega Trail and they want to go up to 29er, they can use the same shock and get new wheels for seat stay kit. There's also a decent amount of people, especially those that are interested in kind of it's like the tinkerer's dream. So those people they probably have a pile of parts. They probably have a 27.5 fork. They probably have a 29 fork, wheel set, tires, whatever. And they're like, well, shit, I might as well try something new.
Right.
So, for the tinker, it's pretty valuable. And then, for someone like myself, like I'm personally not the guy to swap my, spend 3 hours in the garage every week and swap my bike out. And I can talk to you about my bike maintenance.
We're on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to working on things. Another thing is a lot of the forks that are already out there on the bikes that, GG bikes is a lot of times it's, say if you're going from like the Smash to Gnarvana or even some of the trail pistol builds to the Gnarvana, a lot of times the fork is just an air spring change. For example, there's a lot of people out there that have trail pistols that got 36s on there. So you can take a 36 because we stocked those at 140 travel for the trail pistol. There's a bunch of folks that have those, and so they can just get an air spring and change it to 170 travel. And
yeah, I mean, until the new 38 just came out recently, that was the option, right? I mean, Fox says they're not going to offer the 36 and 170 anymore, but I imagine they'll still be people will still be able to get a hold of 170 air springs and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
People will start offering them or whatever. So yeah, it's really cool to be able to have that flexibility. I've run 36s all the way down to like 120.
Yeah, exactly.
So just to get the benefit of that better damper. So you guys have had your revved carbon for a year now, and we've done a story on it. But for those who aren't familiar, what is the rev carbon? What makes it special? Why is it different than normal kind of carbon fiber frames?
Yeah, so it kind of combines two elements. So one is going to be a new resin chemistry that's more impact resistant. And also with that new resin chemistry, we get some manufacturing advantages as well. So we're able to essentially make them very efficiently compared to traditional carbon, which requires a crazy amount of labor. So it combines that new resin chemistry and the new manufacturing process that was developed by Revved to create the new product, and we're able to essentially pass on the manufacturing efficiencies all the way through to the riders.
And so can you guys get into like any of the specific differences that make the carbon different? Like what's different about the actual, because carbon starts in like sheets or rolls, right?
So it's a composite between a resin and the fibers, and the carbon fibers that we're using are the same as a lot of other carbon fiber frames. It's the resin that's different. And so the base raw material that we start with is a roll of the composite. So they're generally unidirectional tapes, which is what we use for the most part. So we start with those, and it looks kind of similar to a traditional frame, just the resin is completely different.
Right. And does it require the same sort of like care as normal resins do? I know like most like typical carbon needs to be refrigerated. It has like a expiration date, all that stuff. Like is your guys' stuff, or is the revved stuff similar to that, or is it much different?
Nope. So there's no expiration date. We don't need to keep it in a freezer. So it's much easier to work with, which is part of the manufacturability improvements. So that we don't need to deal with a lot of those limitations.
Yeah. Are they all made in the US?
Yep.
100%. And rear ends are alloy, right? The chain stays and seat stays?
Yep.
And so is all that stuff made in the US too? Like that and the other frame components, the like swing links and your like derailleur hangers and all the different bits and bobs that go into it?
Yeah, there's a couple of the small parts. The derailleur hangers we don't make, so that's a Synthase part that is Taiwan sourced. But we've got a number of CNC machines. We make most of the stuff in house.
Yeah.
And it's US based for sure.
Yeah, the new Nirvana, actually, speaking of derailleur hangers, uses the new universal derailleur hanger from SRAM.
Yeah, that's okay.
Which is the Taiwan source part as well, but
yeah.
No, it's all it's very US. I mean, even the carbon raw material comes from the US.
And I guess like maybe with all of this, like it means that your supply chains are a little bit maybe potentially more reliable.
It's certainly a shorter supply chain, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that definitely helps. The less complex it gets, the easier it is to control.
So I guess getting back to Gnarvana and launching the bike, is it available? When's it available? Is it available yet?
It
It
is.
is available now.
Yep, the first brand ambassadors and handful of shop partners already have one who ordered one. So, yeah, we got them. We got them in stock.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that we definitely made an improvement over what we've done in the past. In the past, we tended to launch things and there's still a bit of a lead time. And this time around, we've had these in production for a little bit now, and so the lead time is much shorter. And we have stuff that's ready to ship.
So what kind of build kits are available? Can you talk about it's your different tiers, the level of customization that you can do with parts that Guerrilla Gravity offers, and then also I guess frame pricing and sort of tiered pricing.
Sure. Yeah. So the complete started at $38.95 USD, and that's going to be for the ride build. There's 3 builds: ride, rally, race. Race is $63.95. So the ride starts with a Lyric Select fork, NX drivetrain, code brakes. The race is going to have Fox Factory suspension, X01, and then rally, which is $47.95. It splits the difference. It's our most popular build. That's going to have the Lyric Ultimate. It's going to have a Fox DPX2. But to your point about the customization, someone can go with the ride build, and if they just want to upgrade the suspension, they have that available to them. So, you can get higher end suspension options on, with like an NX level build sort of thing. So you can really cherry pick the components that are most important to you.
I got one final question for you. I know that as the parents of a bunch of bikes, you're not supposed to pick favorites, but where's the Gnarvana sit on your guys' scale? I guess it depends on what your home turf looks like, but
yeah, it's really fun. I've been riding one for a while, and I converted my bike from a trail pistol to a Gnarvana, and I'm riding a lot of the same trails on the new rig, with LongTravel versus the shorter travel version. I think they're both awesome, and I'll set one up and say this is definitely my favorite, and then I'll switch to a different one and say, oh, this is definitely my favorite.
yeah.
Right now I've got a 38 and a DHX2 on my Gnarvana, and it's pretty awesome. You can just kind of point it wherever you want and just let the bike deal with it.
Yeah.
I would say I don't have the favorite one. I have is the one that I'm riding.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think that's
I
right.
think the new baby always gets attention.
Yeah.
So there's always that, and I'm personally not one to try too hard at picking my lines. So it's good at helping me do that and keep it upright.
Right on. Well, thanks guys so much. Thanks for sending us a bike, and I'm looking very much forward to getting out on trails when they're not so crowded and when it's safe, and starting to explore the bike and different options here. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and stay safe out there. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You too.